Hello everyone, welcome to Scorcher Toys at Anymoon.com's review of Bandai's Super Part accessory for their DX VF31 toys. Today we're looking at all three of the first releases in this line. All were Tamashii website exclusives, meaning you had to be a Japanese resident to get these, or you had them shipped through a middleman. So obviously my normal plug for BBTS does not really make sense here, but if you are shopping for non-Macross toys right now, you can click the link in the section below and you'll be helping out this channel by doing so. This line of accessories began with the VF31J custom super parts. That was in May 2017 for 7,344 yen. Later in October 2017, we got the VF31F Messer custom super parts. Those super parts are exactly the same bits, but they were in a much smaller package. Then more recently in May 2018 for 8,424 yen, we got the VF31C Genius Custom super parts. They were different in that they now included reaction missiles, the attachment points with the super parts installed for the reaction missiles, and attachment points if you weren't using the super parts for those reaction missiles. Regardless of which version of the super parts we're talking about, installation is always exactly the same because it's always the exact same piece of plastic, just in a different shade. So we'll start with this little armor piece. The longer end goes down by the fist and it attaches right to the hard point on the forearm. Next up we'll do the crotch armor, which you can see there's two little slots right in that gray area. There are two little pegs on the back of the crotch armor, and it's just going to slide right into position. Apply a little pressure and it'll jam right in. Next we will do the upper legs. There's this piece here, again tabs on either side, slots in that gray area there, and you're just going to apply pressure till it's nice and tight on there. You should be able to do things like move this piece around without it falling off. Next, going right below that, there's this piece of armor here. I screwed it up at least once in my original review for these super parts, so we're doing it again. The pegs on either side, angled a bit towards the top, and just apply pressure, clicks right into place. And those are those pieces there, all nice and tight, not gonna pop off on you. Now we're gonna turn the toy around and we're gonna install the booster. Now the booster is one of the trickier aspects of installation. You're gonna bring the wing towards you a little bit, grab your booster, you're gonna pull out, and you're gonna push this piece down here, which will extend something that can grab onto the wings. Now, or the vertical stabilizers, I should say. And then you wanna slide your vertical stabilizer in and get this clip up above to be a little on the inside here. And then you're just gonna bring this sliding mechanism up and it should pinch into place. And once it does, you can just apply pressure inward and that collapses. And then you know it's collapsed because of this slider mechanism, which should be up all the way. That was the problem there. This slider mechanism will be tight up against the bottom of the booster. And you can see I've got just a little bit of wing extended there. And you know you've got it right because you can flip this part of the wing over and it's not gonna hit anything. Everything's all gravy there. So we can go like that. And now your booster is in position. All right, let's focus on the leg. There are three pieces of armor that constitute the leg armor. There's this one back piece that just slides on right over the top. You can see, again, pegs on the side, little slot right here. You want to line it all up, clip it into place. Then you've got this piece here, which goes on the outside of the leg. And you can see a big peg on the top there, big slot right there. That's the easiest way to line things up, is just to eyeball that. When you press in, you'll see that the bottom piece of the armor fits nicely into that groove on the back piece. Then spin your toy around and you've got the Shin Guard here, which has a few different tabs. One at the top, one right there, and then there's a little hole in the bottom here that's going to accept a peg that's down on the bottom here. And so you're going to line everything up and you're going to apply pressure inward, and it should lock firmly into place. And you'll know you have it right because you'll still have access to pull the kneecap forward without it hitting this edge of the armor. Our final piece to install is the chest armor. It looks like this. We're just gonna bring it towards the front and slide it up and on, and it'll click into place. Right there it did. And then once you've got it in position, you can just pivot these back down, and there you go. You are now in a super Batroid mode. Unfortunately, I don't own 2 of every DX VF31 toy, but I do own a 31J Kai, and I can compare that naked to the Super Parts version of the toy, so you can get a feel for if you like the fully done up version. The DX31 on its own is a pretty attractive toy, so adding the Super Parts to some might constitute some unwarranted bulk. Otherwise, it does attach in a way that's fairly organic. It doesn't look like there's something foreign that's been slapped on the toy. They certainly integrate pretty well. And you can make a judgment call for yourself if they are adding or detracting to the presentation in Batroid mode. If your DX VF31 toy is one of the ones that is getting sort of weaker hips, even though they're nice ratcheted hips on this toy, my VF31F has the loosest of all of the hips on all my toys, and you can see you're adding a bunch of weight to the back of the toy, so potentially you could be exacerbating some problems there. Now obviously you can just adopt wider stances to help solve that, and one of the things I really do like about these Super Parts is that they do facilitate all of the original articulation. So for example, you can slide down this piece here, and then you saw that this piece pivots up. You can also see that these are the most problematic pieces as far as popping off the toy. But once that slides up, you can go ahead and use that gear walk joint to your advantage, which is pretty cool. So you haven't hindered that bit of articulation at all. And you can go ahead and get some pretty aggressive looking stances like that. And then another thing that's pretty cool, you still can use that dagger that flips up. None of that's been impeded upon through the addition of these Super Parts. So the Super Parts add to the bulk of the toy, which can cause some problems as far as center of gravity is concerned, but they don't hinder your enjoyment of the features or the articulation. Since these are the exact same parts, no matter which version you got, you can swap them onto different vehicles. So here I have put Hayate's 31J Super Parts onto his 31 Kai, and the fact that they go on so well has made those particular Super Parts the most expensive to come by in the secondary market. Now I could easily be putting Messer's Super Parts on a Mirage toy. That's going to work out just fine also. Now one thing to point out, if you do bring the boosters all the way back like I've done here, you don't have a lot of clearance for what to do with the backpack, but you can always cheat and bring them out and then bring these down a little bit lower if you wanted to. Now there are missiles in these chest parts. I'm going to show you those in gear walk mode. It'll be a little bit more clearance there to work with. Mirage's Super Parts are of course the same as the VF31F or VF31J Super Parts, except we got the additional reaction missiles. And this here is the attachment piece that works with the Super Parts. So you have the fat end of the plug facing down, you place this round peg inside there, and then you're going to take your toy, and the arm armor has a little spot right in the middle that you can see receives that little clip, and you can see very quick and easy, just pops right into place. Same thing on the other side, and obviously these big reaction missiles have pretty dramatic impact on the look of the toy with those Super Parts included. So you've now taken a pretty slender Batroid mode and you've really beefed it up to make it look very aggressive. So again, it's a subjective thing. Some people are going to like it more than others, but I think those reaction missiles really put it over the top, and it's a shame that they weren't included with the 31J and 31F releases. Here we are in gear walk mode, and it's a pretty attractive gear walk mode. Now I mentioned before that when we got here we would check out that missile bay and on the top here, so let's take a look at these. Now you can see I've got them pivoted up a little bit, and now what that does is this area here can pivot up and down. And by doing so, that frees up more articulation at the arm in a way that hopefully won't scratch off too much paint there, but still I would definitely be careful of it. Also, as I'm handling this, I'm definitely not being the best about keeping everything together, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. It's not gonna really be a detriment to handling, but let's take a look at now these missiles that open up like so. Now it is a pretty traditional hinge. It's not like they do a lot of work to hide that hinge mechanism. And once they get open, pretty basic detail there. Obviously we could open up both. There's clearance enough from this backpack. And so that's what it'd look like. Pretty impressive, I would say. The downside here, and again, subjective, the vertical stabilizers need to fold flat and then you get those big boosters on the back, which I've heard some people say they thought looked pretty awkward. So switching things up a little this time, I've got the standard VF31J off to the left here, and then I've put the armored part, or the super parts, on the VF31J Kai to the right here. Again, these super parts work for either toy, which has obviously driven up the value of these super parts in the secondary market, making them a little harder to come by. And you can get a better feel for whether or not you like the look of gear walk mode with the super parts installed, or if you like the cleaner lines without the super parts. Because I know a lot of people out there, particularly for fighter mode, have said that the super parts detract from an already beautiful VF31. So again, I leave it up to you, whichever you prefer. It's bulkier, it's meaner, but it's a little less sleek and sexy. Here we have the Mirage Custom in gear walk mode. We've got those big reaction missiles on again, and they don't interfere at all with the swing out gun mechanism, which is good. Now, when you're transforming the toy from Batroid mode to gear walk mode, you do need to remove this chest piece because there are flaps on either side of the head and they get interfered with by that chest piece, and that doesn't allow you to spin the head around like you're supposed to be able to. So that's a bit of a bummer, but not a big deal. Clips on and clips off very easily. There's also these integrated backpack pieces that hold the back up. They do a very admirable job. I didn't really have any problems with my gearwalk mode toys getting sloppy on me. Unlike my DX VF25 renewal toys, Bandai kind of figured that out as they went and got better with it. The VF31 toy is a continued evolution there. It's very sturdy in gearwalk mode. But that's it for gearwalk mode. Let's continue on to fighter. The other thing you get with the super parts are a new fighter mode display stand adapter that has a much wider berth here. You can see on the left I've got the traditional version, on the right I've got the super parts version of the display stand adapter. And why that is because when you are using the super parts in fighter mode, as we see here, you do have to bring the legs down a little bit. And then obviously you've got the leg armor. So it's a little bit different position, a little bit wider attachment. And you'll find that this new display stand adapter does grip the toy very well, kind of plugs into place and grips those leg armors, and then holds on quite nicely. Now, if you are not using the super parts, I did mention that the reaction missiles come with a adapter piece to attach to the hard points for use without super parts. So here we are. It has to have the longer end of this piece forward, and they will just plug right in to any other toy. So if you want to use Mirage's super parts, but you want to throw the reaction weaponry on a different vehicle, you can feel free to do so. And then again, we'll just plug in the display stand adapter. And here we have a naked VF31 J Kai and a VF31J with the super parts on. So again, you can see kind of how the toy looks without super parts and with super parts, and make a judgment for yourself on how badly you need this particular accessory. The missile gimmick you've already seen, but obviously very easily deployed in fighter mode, no longer anything over the top. The other gimmick that these super parts employ are nozzles that are articulated. So this nozzle down here, ball joint, all of these little nozzles here, incredibly stiff, but ball joints. So there you go. So those all can be moved. Same thing with these ones on the other side here. And then rotating the toy around. This nozzle right here, up and down. And then you have these nozzles in the back, which can be moved up and down, and they're ball joints. On the ankles, you have these ball joints here, but the ankles themselves also have a pivot. So as I was handling the toy in Batroid and Gearwalk mode, these were able to get out of the way to make room for the ankles to move around. So that's very nice. Again, not inhibiting articulation. Now the only nozzles that aren't really articulated are these ones on the legs. So there's 1, 2, 3 on the legs. And this nozzle in particular actually popped off on me and needed to be glued back on. I think it was just a poor factory glue job in the first place, but that's the one durability issue I've come across with these super parts so far. Of course, you don't need to use the display stand. You can use the landing gear, and even with the reaction missiles attached, you're gonna have plenty of clearance, just as if you weren't using the super parts, so that's really cool. Now, they do have the ability, since these reaction missiles are on a circular peg, to swing around during transformation, which is cool, because that's what they're supposed to do. In Batroid mode, these red dots are facing this way, and as you transform the toy, the missiles need to swing around. Now, the one bummer is that in order to get this hand that is underneath here, the hand that's right there, to tuck in during transformation, you're gonna have to remove this piece of armor anyway. So it's clever that they used a round peg because it allows the missiles to swing around, but ultimately it doesn't stop you from having to remove a part anyways and put it back on again. So theoretically, you could have just pulled the missiles off and then put them back on in the different direction, not using that swing, just plugging them back in. So what that causes is that your reaction missiles now are on round pegs and can get askew during handling. Obviously not a big deal, and I think most people prefer the fact that they made it so in theory those reaction missiles are doing what they're supposed to do and actually spinning instead of being pulled off and put back on. But the reality of it is you still have to pop a part off. So going from Batroid mode to Gearwalk, you have to pop off the chest, and going from Gearwalk to fighter mode, you're gonna pop off those little armors and then put them right back on again. Overall, I'm a fan of the super parts. I like it more in Batroid mode than fighter mode or Gearwalk mode, but I think there's plenty of room for people to love it in all modes, and I think it's a worthwhile accessory. Yeah, it's expensive for what you get, and more expensive because it's a Tamashii website exclusive, but overall, it spruces things up, and I recommend it. Check out anymoon.com for my full article, and as always, thanks for watching.